Are you someone who believes in the existence of alien life in this cosmos? Are you someone who also believes alien life has made contact before, as well as deliberately made their presence known? Today you're in for a treat if you're that person, because I'm going to talk about a very famous encounter of an airliner with a UFO. The Japan Airlines Cargo Flight 1628 incident. This is the first UFO encounter in human history with official evidence, and it is considered to be the most well-documented UFO encounter up until today. Unfortunately, the incident was classified information for 15 years, and the captain involved was dismissed due to his encounter. Okay, so let's take a look at what exactly happened. Hello everyone, welcome to Broadview. My name is Joseph. On November 17, 1986, a Japan Airlines Boeing 747 cargo plane flew en route from Paris to Tokyo. This was a route that crossed the United States on its way to Japan. The plane was filled with luxury wine from France. There were only 3 crew members on the flight. One was a captain, Kenju Terachi, a former fighter pilot with a total flight time of more than 10,000 hours, with a rich piloting experience. The other 2 was an officer and a flight engineer. At 5:09 p.m., they flew over Anchorage, Alaska's most populated city. At this time, the plane was flying at an altitude of 11,000 meters and at a cruising speed of 909 kilometers per hour. The airport tower controller advised them to fly north, so the plane began to turn at 5:11 p.m. At this time, it was nearing nighttime over Alaska, and the weather was good, and the bright spots in the sky were clearly seen. At this point, the captain noticed that there were 2 unidentified objects 600 meters below the left side of the plane, and they were following the same flight route as the cargo plane itself. The 2 objects were flying side by side with them. At first, the captain thought it was 2 military transport aircraft because this area occasionally encountered military aircraft. But these 2 flyers were too close to the cargo plane. According to the rules, each passenger plane has its own airspace that's 16 kilometers long, 8 kilometers wide, and 600 meters thick. If an aircraft enters the range of this box, it'll cause turbulence, affecting flight safety. It was obvious that these 2 flying objects had entered the airspace of the Boeing 747. So the first officer immediately contacted the control tower at the Anchorage airport and asked if there were any other aircraft nearby. The control tower informed them that there were no other flights nearby, and the tower radar didn't see any other aircraft around them. The tower contacted the nearby Elmendorf Air Force Base and asked if there were any military aircraft near the cargo plane, but they answered that there wasn't any. By this point, the 2 objects were flying side by side with the plane. Then they suddenly accelerated and rushed 1,000 meters in front of the flight, one object above the other. Each UFO was square in shape and consisted of 2 rectangular components which looked like glowing nozzles or thrusters separated by a dark core, and they had a white and yellow glow around them. As the 3 people aboard the cargo plane wondered what they were, the 2 flying objects suddenly emitted dazzlingly bright light. For a time, the 3 men were blinded by the dazzling light and they couldn't open their eyes. The cabin became noticeably hotter. This light lasted for about 5 to 7 seconds, and after it disappeared, the 2 UFOs resumed flying side by side again, and remained in this configuration for 10 minutes. Later, the captain and the others saw that the UFOs were cylindrical, almost cigar-shaped, which was different from any aircraft made by humans at the time. This made them instantly nervous. At this moment, the 2 UFOs suddenly veered eastward and disappeared over the horizon at a very fast speed. The crew had a sigh of relief. But what they didn't expect was that a few minutes later, there was an even more terrifying scene. The captain suddenly found that 2 flying objects had appeared again on both sides of the front of the plane. They were both about the same size as the cargo plane, emitting a dimmer light than before. Their flight altitude, speed, and direction were all the same as those of Flight 1628. But when the captain inspected the 2 objects more closely, he was shocked. It turned out that the 2 UFOs emitting light weren't 2 separate UFOs at all. They were lights at the ends of a giant aircraft that appeared to be double the size of an aircraft carrier. The captain then expanded the detection range of their airborne radar to 46 kilometers, confirming that there was an unidentified flying object about 13.9 kilometers away from the plane at 10 o'clock, and they notified the air traffic controller. Anchorage air traffic controller still didn't see anything unusual, but a few minutes later, Elmendorf Air Force Base's radar picked up an object tracking Flight 1628. The captain requested a change of course to avoid a collision with the giant UFO, but the UFO followed Flight 1628 with a 45-degree turn. It descended from 35,000 feet to 31,000 feet and then completed a 360-degree turn. Anchorage air traffic controllers asked the captain if military intervention was needed, as the planes at Elmendorf Air Force Base were ready to take off. The captain ultimately refused because he knew of the 1948 Mantell UFO incident. This is where the Air National Guard Captain Thomas Francis Mantell Jr. crashed a fighter jet after tracking an unidentified flying object. Anchorage Air Traffic Control then instructed United Airlines Flight 69 and other nearby flights to fly within sight of JAL 1628 and report any follow-up. The pilot of United Flight 69 replied that no other flying objects were seen around Flight 1628. So after 10 minutes, the UFO suddenly disappeared from their field of vision. The entire event lasted 31 minutes, during which all UFOs exhibited significant anti-gravity properties. At 6:20 p.m., Flight 1628 landed safely at Anchorage International Airport. After the Boeing 747 cargo plane returned, the Japanese airline asked the three officers not to disclose the matter for safety reasons. However, the captain Terauchi accepted an interview to talk about this incident with a Japanese media outlet 2 months later. He said that what they encountered was a UFO, and also drew out what the UFO looked like, thus exposing the incident to the public. Japanese Airlines subsequently grounded Terauchi. Although Terauchi resumed flying 6 months later, he did not serve as captain again and retired from Japanese Airlines 2 years later. The Federal Aviation Administration was involved in the investigation as soon as the incident occurred. John Callahan, head of the FAA Accident Investigation Branch at the time, participated in the investigation. With this revelation, many media outlets called the FAA and asked them to release their findings. So Callahan reported his findings at the FAA headquarters in a meeting with the FBI, the CIA, and President Reagan's scientific research team. There, he shared his opinion as an aviation professional on the matter, revealing that he thought the UFOs encountered in the incident were superior to any earthly technology. After listening to his findings, the other participants of the meeting left without saying anything. The CIA took away all evidence and told Callahan that the incident was top secret, reminding him that it never happened, and that the CIA had never been there. However, Callahan managed to keep a copy of the original conversation and the pilot's report. In 1987, the FAA held a press conference to state that the FAA did not have sufficient evidence to confirm the existence of UFOs in this incident. Although the FAA accepted the pilot's description, it could not support the veracity of the pilot's statement. Later, the incident disappeared from the public's view, and the captain Kenju Terauchi also refused to accept any media interviews. It wasn't until 15 years after the incident on May 9, 2001, that as many as 30 former senior US officials, military personnel, and NASA-related personnel attended a seminar called the Disclosure Project. This was to specifically disclose hidden information from the US government. Callahan disclosed the facts at the meeting and said that the White House hid the truth about the UFO encounter on Flight 1628 15 years ago. One explanation regarding this incident is that the two UFOs were actually the United States' top-secret stealth reconnaissance aircraft SR-71 Blackbirds. First of all, the SR-71 is a high-altitude and high-speed reconnaissance aircraft, and not many people back then had ever seen one of those aircraft. It has a sci-fi-esque appearance, you've all seen it. Its entire fuselage is cylindrical, and the tails on both of its sides can also spray flames. However, due to the nature of the SR-71's engine, if it had been flying at a speed of 909 kilometers an hour, as 1628 was at the time, its tail flames shouldn't have been red and yellow. However, due to the nature of SR-71's engine, if it had been flying at a speed of 909 kilometers an hour, as Flight 1628, its tail flames should have been red and yellow, not white and yellow. Moreover, it's unconventional and extremely dangerous for two SR-71s to fly side by side, as the UFOs were, at such a low altitude and speed. Another explanation comes from Randy Cerveni, an extreme weather expert. He believes that ice crystals appeared in the air at the time of the incident. Because the temperature is so low at high altitudes, water can't exist in its liquid form, so it forms large swaths of ice crystal clouds. These clouds create weird optical effects when illuminated by the moonlight and are sometimes mistaken for UFOs. This is possible since when people encounter things that they have never seen, their brains will oftentimes make up extraordinary details, just like how some people see a strange point of light and automatically believe it's a UFO. So maybe an optical illusion affected the pilot's judgment. But this doesn't explain why the UFO signal was also showing up on the airbase's radar. Now, the explanation given by the FAA was that there was an error in the radar identification. This is because the military radar uses two sets of systems. The main radar radio wave hits an object in the air and then returns the data for identification. The second radar uses a transponder device. The radar signal is transmitted to the transponder on the aircraft and then sent back for identification. At the time, the air controller turned on both systems at the same time, but due to the failure of the transponder, a delayed response signal was transmitted, so it could have been mistaken for a second aircraft. We know that radar works by emitting electromagnetic waves, illuminating a target and then receiving its echo to determine its orientation. This is why the current stealth fighters all use stealth coatings to reduce the reflection of radar waves, and also modify their outer design to reduce the reflection angle and temperature of the tail flame so that only some scattered points are displayed on the radar. This allows them to remain hidden. But these are all passive stealth technologies. If active stealth technology is used, such as changing the plasma generated by the atmosphere on the surface of the aircraft to absorb radar waves, it would be a perfect stealth technology. But the disadvantage here is that the aircraft would be invisible to the radar, but still visible to the naked eye. So it is likely that these UFOs use even more advanced active stealth technology that makes it difficult to trace on radars. These UFOs can completely disguise themselves as clouds, stars, or other common things in the sky. That's because real stealth might not be to dodge any detection device, but to camouflage or become something familiar to people. Some people suspect that aliens may have already come to the Earth, but often evidence that remains is refuted in mainstream circles. It's also difficult to identify their presence. Maybe this is because they have disguised themselves as ordinary people. Because if you want to study a group, the best way to do so is becoming a part of the group. So who knows, maybe they walk among us. Well, that's it for today's video. What are your thoughts on this topic? Do you think that the cargo plane saw a real UFO? Feel free to leave your comment below. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.